Como te bon. Mr. Manele, am I audible?
Honorable Zimandu, good morning. You are audible.
Thank you. We are learning these things of technology.
Absolutely, Tati. Thank you, Tati.
Great with systems like
Recording in progress.
Good morning, honorable members of the Select Committee. Let me also greet the officials from the department, our support team in the NCOP Select Committee of Cooperative, Public Service and Administration, Human Settlement and Water and Sanitation. You are all welcome, honorable members. We'll start our meeting by confirming if there are apologies that are forwarded before us. Mr. Manele, are there any apologies?
Yes, good morning, Chair. Chair, only apology received is from the
Your
Chief
volume,
Whip.
I don't know whether it's my gadget or it's your volume on your side.
Okay. Can you hear me? Am I audible, Chairperson?
Yes, you are audible, yes.
Yes, I was saying the only official apology tabled is from the Chief Whip, Honorable Moiman. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, it's Honorable Moimank and the Minister and Deputy Minister and the DG of the department who indicated their non-availability. And we have noted as a result, this meeting was scheduled to have 3 items. The committee, in our conversation through our page, we have come to a conclusion that the 2 items should be deferred because we need an interface with the political leadership of the department, the minister, to be part of that meeting when we discuss the review on WhitePaper and the funding for municipalities. So those 2 items have been requested to be deferred so that we have the minister with us to engage politically, because we are politicians. We'll need to engage with another politician at the level of the department as a political head of the department. So with that being raised, but we'll request that there is a mover for the adoption of the agenda with those amendments and the seconder respectively. Honorable Peter.
I move, Chair, for the adoption of the agenda.
Thank you very much. Honorable Peter moved. Any seconder?
I'll second, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Berenhorst. Seconds. So those 2 items are formally deferred to the next engagement with the minister. So we are remaining with 1 item on the briefing on the object of Intergovernmental Monitoring and Intervention Bill, which will be done by the departmental officials. Then we'll look at the minutes immediate after that. I'm not going to be making any input. I'll just request the department to come in and present, because members will have to fetch the bus at 12, and we need to be there and be ready for the debate at 2 o'clock. So let me hand over to the departmental officials to lead us on this item. Thank you.
Good morning, Honorable Chairperson, all honorable members of the committee.
Sorry, Dr. Naidu. Chairperson.
Yes, Honorable Taza.
Can I be accepted on the other gadget, sir? Please.
Yes.
I'm on. Please, sir.
No, we know that you've got 100 phones. You can connect the second one.
Yes, sir. No.
Okay, Dr. Knight, you can proceed.
Sorry, doctor. Sorry, doctor.
No, it's fine. Thank you so much. Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson. So yes, the presentation that we had prepared that covered these 3 items, but I suppose that for the reasons that have been advanced, we will now just focus on part B of the presentation and defer the rest as indicated by the chair. So the presentation on the Intergovernmental Monitoring Support and Interventions Bill of 2025, we provide for noting, for information. But in terms of what lives in the presentation itself, we provide background, some experience that we have documented in the administration of interventions, the process followed in the development of the bill, what the purpose and the overview, what lives in the bill, the structure of the bill, and then at the end of the slides, we make some recommendations. So just by background and to provide the constitutional context, one would know that Chapter 3 provides that each sphere of government must respect the constitutional status, powers, and functions of another sphere, and each sphere must exercise its powers and functions in a manner that does not encroach on the geographical, functional, or institutional integrity of government in another sphere. Furthermore, in sections 100 and 139, it is provided for in the Constitution that there needs to be safeguards, checks and balances in the governmental system when one sphere of government cannot or is unable to discharge its executive obligations in terms of the Constitution or legislation. So these provisions draw directly from the Constitution. Section 100 specifically states that when a province cannot or does not fulfill an executive obligation provided for in the Constitution or legislation, the national executive may intervene by taking steps to ensure fulfillment of that obligation. The same provided for in section 139, but now relevant to a municipality. The national legislation that we are now looking at, the IMSI, the Intergovernmental Monitoring Support and Intervention Bill, derives from those provisions that have been cited in the Constitution. On the extreme right, you would see that to date, we have documented 24 interventions in terms of Section 100 of the Constitution, and then 217 Section 139 interventions. The empirical evidence that we indicated that we have documented through this process ever since the initiation of interventions, we've noted that there have been difficulties by provinces in interpreting what constitutes an executive obligation in terms of the Constitution or legislation. We've noted that there have been limitations of Section 1391, where it comes to the failure to fulfill an executive obligation, would lead to difficulties in interpreting when an intervention is permitted and what steps must be taken or what steps are permitted. We've also noted that, except in few instances, the vast majority of interventions were conducted in terms of the general Section 1391B of the Constitution, and much less on financial provisions and the issuing of directives in terms of Section 1391A of the Constitution. We've noted also that there have been difficulties experienced with regards to the computation of time as to when an intervention has actually begun, but also noted that there has been little indication that provincial legislatures exercised oversight over the Provincial Executive Committee actions in terms of Section 139 of the Constitution. Noticed also that some provinces have been unable to submit regular progress reports and the final closeout reports once an intervention had ended, but noting also that resistance and obstructionist tendencies from councils and employees, to the extent that there is no cooperation and at times bordering on illegal activities, to the extent of even going and destroying documentation and the issuing of illegal instructions to other officials against that which the administrator would be permitted to do. We've also noted that provinces tend to interpret the invocation of a Section 139 of the Constitution differently from each other, despite national guidelines being put in place by the department in collaboration with the National Treasury. Furthermore, noting that municipal personnel are skeptical in the instance of an intervention and also very reluctant at times and being not supportive to the work of the administrator that would have been installed. Furthermore, provinces lack the capacity to deal with their mandate of monitoring and supporting local government in terms of funding, in terms of staff, in terms of institutional knowledge and capacity, and that some of the interventions could have been prevented if an early warning system leading to proper support had been in place. There have been instances we've noted that the NCOP seems to have played a key role in providing objectivity, mediation, and on-site investigation. And the question that we had asked was, could this have been done by the provinces as part of their own support and assistance role in relation to municipalities? We've noted also that there's uncertainty regarding the nature of and required intensity of the intergovernmental checks and balances, which is the review undertaken by the Minister and the National Council of Provinces. In relation to the involvement of district municipalities, we've noted that there has been differences in the support or the involvement of district municipalities from one to the other, from one province to the other province. And lastly, participation by the local municipality in the implementation of interventions in terms of 1391B is a critical factor for its success. So all of those issues that have been tabulated in those two slides have been covered in terms of providing for them in the various provisions that we found in the book. This slide just references the evolution, the genesis of the bill, from whence we had started until where we are now. So starting with consultations with various stakeholders, national departments, premiers, provincial decogs, treasuries, many MINMECs, engaging municipal troikas and office bearers, trade unions, organized labor, NEDLAC, as well as many other stakeholders as we had undertaken the development of the bill. More recently, Cabinet approved the publication of the IMSI bill for comments in July of 2023 and published in the Gazette a week later, and then closing date for comments on the 26th of August. We've received over 1,000 written comments and inputs from various stakeholders, all considered, some included, some excluded, based on the matter at hand. Bill, as is required, was subjected to constitutional testing by the Office of the Chief State Law Advisor, and as is also required, the submission of a socio-economic impact assessment study, or SEAS, by the presidency. Before we had come to tabling, served before the Cabinet Committee in March last year, and then approved by Cabinet in the same month. Now, having gotten approval by Cabinet, we still had to ensure that that which we were submitting to Parliament stood constitutional muster. We had several engagement with the Office of the Chief State Law Advisor. And finally, having received approval, submitted the bill to Parliament on the 31st of March and then subsequently published in the ATC 2 weeks later. Lastly, that the bill will be implemented by the national executive, the provincial executives, and municipalities to ensure fulfillment of the executive obligations in terms of the Constitution. All within the context of the motto that has been adopted by the department and the ministry in this administration, in that every municipality must work. This slide provides at a very high level, as summarized as possible, the purpose and the overview of the bill. So firstly, the purpose, and we've broken it down in terms of the long title in the bill. To firstly, regulate the implementation and the processes provided in sections 100 and 139, provision of targeted support to provinces and municipalities that need support, the provision for monitoring and of provinces and municipalities as to fulfillment of the executive obligations, the provision of alternative steps to interventions to induce compliance by provinces with their executive obligations, to provide for appointment of administrators by the intervening national or provincial executive, and then lastly to deal with other consequential matters. The right-hand side block gives a very high-level overview of each of the 7 chapters in the bill. So chapter 1 dealing with the definition of key concepts, chapter 2 dealing with the national monitoring of provinces and support to be provided to provinces, and exactly what lives in that chapter is summarized on the right-hand side of that table. Chapter 3 dealing with processes on national interventions in provincial government departments. Chapter 4 dealing with national and provincial monitoring and whether municipalities are executing their executive obligations. Chapter 5 dealing with provincial interventions in municipalities, and then Chapter 6 dealing with the appointment of administrators or national and provincial executive representatives in provincial and municipal interventions. Now, if one wants to get a picture of how the bill is constructed, this slide gives one that picture. So again, showing the 7 chapters that are in the bill, we provided some color coding to show some alignment. For example, when you look at chapter 2 and chapter 4 of the bill, both color coded in yellow, but the difference is that chapter 2 deals with the monitoring and support of provinces, and chapter 4 deals with the monitoring and support of municipalities. Same kind of logic when you look at chapter 3 and chapter 5. Chapter 3 deals with national intervention in provinces, and chapter 5 deals with provincial intervention in municipalities. Now, each of the chapters have different parts to it and also alignment. So if you look at chapter 2 and the 2 parts that they have there, the first part deals with the fulfillment of the provincial executive obligations, and then the part 2 in chapter 4 deals with municipal executive obligations. Chapter 2 deals with national support for provinces in need, and then chapter 4 deals with the second part, national and provincial support for municipalities in need. So too with chapter 3 and chapter 5. So the 9 parts in chapter 3 are replicated in chapter 5, with the addition of one additional part in chapter 5 dealing with municipalities, which deals with the dissolution of municipal council. So, Honorable Chair, honorable members, this is a picture which unpacks the various provisions, chapters, and parts in the bill. On the top right-hand corner, you would see that we have highlighted some of the definitions we thought pertinent to the discussion and which are then unpacked in the next slide. Chapter 1 deals with, again, the interpretation and application of the Act. And as I've indicated, we've extracted those, definitions we believe are pertinent for presentation. So because when you look at the bill itself, these are continuously repeated or reference being made to them throughout the various provisions in the bill. So, for example, executive obligation, something that, was subjected to a lot of discussion between ourselves and the Office of the Chief State Law Advisor, because we felt that this, if properly provided for, would inform when and when not an intervention should be taking place in a municipality or a province. So the definition provided is that in relation to a province or municipality includes mandatory instruction in law to exercise a function in terms of the provisions of the Constitution or legislation. We've defined what an intervention step is, and it is provided for in section 32 of the bill, but dealing with a province, and then also in section 42 of the bill, which deals with municipality, and it includes the issuing of a directive, the assumption of responsibility for the executive obligation. It provides for the implementation of measures to regulate decisions, and for municipalities, the imposition of measures regulating Chapter 3 of the MFMA, and also dealing with dissolution and the appointment of the managers. The definition of national executive in the bill means that it is the cabinet that is referred to in section 91(1) of the Constitution. And the national executive member means a member of cabinet. The national executive representative would be the national executive providing or appointing a person or national department or entity to fulfill an executive obligation. And then a definition for Office of Standards and Compliance is that office established by the Department of Public Service and Administration in terms of section 17(1) of the Public Administration Management Act. Provincial executive means the executive council of a province, and then the provincial executive representative requires that the provincial executive may appoint an official of a national or provincial department, entity, or municipality in the province, or a person in the private sector. So some of the important interventions that is provided for in the bill now is firstly, the establishment of a national coordinating committee and a provincial coordinating committee. The first consists of the Minister of Cooperative, the Minister of Finance, the Minister of Public Service and Administration, any other minister appointed by the National Executive. On the other hand, a provincial coordinating committee is established as a standing committee, as is the case with the National Coordinating Committee, but this is done in each province to coordinate provincial interventions. This committee consists of the MEC of local government, the MEC of finance, and any other MEC appointed by the provincial executive. Chapter 1 then also provides for the exercise of powers, duties, and functions of the national executive, as well as that of the provincial executive, and we've separated both this into two different blocks. In the first instance, the national executive exercises powers over national and provincial interventions that the national executive delegates to the committee or to any member the powers of the national executive, but that also the national executive may revoke any delegation. So a similar cascading of powers, duties, and functions as indicated for the national executive is in respect of the provincial executive. but of course noting the different structural setup in the national and the provincial. Chapter 2 deals with the monitoring of provinces and the fulfillment of provincial executive obligations and then national support for provinces in need. We stress in the instances of provinces that they have the primary responsibility to ensure it fulfills its executive obligation, but it must have an early warning system to alert itself and national government and to take immediate steps to avert non-fulfillment of the executive obligation. The Minister of Public Service Administration, and you will see that this is specifically provided for in the PARMA, through the Office of Standards and Compliance, must establish a monitoring system to monitor fulfillment of the executive obligation. In fact, the department, COPTA, have begun engaging the Department of Public Service Administration to ensure that this office, or steps are taken to ensure that this office is in place, so that at the instance that the bill becomes an act, that office is up and running and able to do that which would be required of it. Provinces needing assistance must formally request support through the Office of the Premier to the National Executive Member, and the National Executive Member given 3 months to prepare a detailed support plan. And if no response is received from the National Executive Member, the Premier may request the President for additional support. Chapter 3 deals with national intervention in provinces, and it is made up of, as I've indicated in the graphic slide, 9 parts, starting with decision-making processes, the directives to provinces, and then ending up with miscellaneous provisions. In summary, just this chapter requires that the relevant National Executive Member to request the National Coordinating Committee to consider an intervention. And once it is approved, an intervention plan is developed. Provincial office officials who obstruct or cause maladministration may be suspended and their duties reassigned. Provinces are also required to cooperate with the intervention. The National Treasury may designate accounting officers or authorities if vacancies or suspensions occur. The Minister must notify the province and the NCOP of the intervention, and the NCOP must approve the intervention within 6 months or 180 days, or it lapses. Interventions must be reviewed at least quarterly. Based on reviews, they may be revised, extended, or terminated. When objectives are met, interventions must be formally terminated and reported to stakeholders. Provinces must operate within the law and avoid undermining national interventions. Chapter 4 deals with monitoring and support of municipalities, made up of these 2 parts. And in summary, like provinces are responsible for fulfilling the executive obligations. In this case, municipalities are primarily responsible for fulfilling their obligations under Section 152 of the Constitution. Here too, they must implement an early warning system to detect and report risks of non-compliance to themselves, the province, and the minister. Municipalities needing support must also submit a written motivation detailing the support required, and if approved, the responsible department or MEC will prepare a tailored support plan. Requests outside a province's competence must go through the MEC through to the relevant national department. National or provincial departments may offer guidance, advice, or temporarily assign specialist support, depending on available resources. If a province detects a failure or failure in the municipality, the MEC responsible for local government must assess its severity and then inform the minister. The minister is then required to consult with the Premier and the MEC and take steps if municipal failure is confirmed. Chapter 5, aligned to Chapter 3, but the one dealing with provinces and the other dealing with municipalities, is made up of these various parts dealing with provincial interventions in municipalities. So in summary, MECs may intervene if a municipality fails to fulfill its executive obligations. Before intervening, they must assess the situation under relevant legal frameworks and may consider alternatives like additional support or legal action. Interventions can include assistance, directives, assumption of functions, budget-related matters, could include the dissolution of council or the appointment of officials. Directives must outline failures and corrective steps. If functions are assumed, a provincial executive representative must be appointed to fulfill obligations, possibly from government or the private sector. Councillors and officials must not obstruct interventions. Provincial executive may suspend obstructive or negligent officials and appoint replacement. Of course, in the case of councillors, for example, if there's a breach of the code, then relevant action must be taken within the ambit of the provisions in the code. The dissolution of councils requires consideration of community impact and consultation with national stakeholders, but municipalities must support and not hinder interventions, and accounting officers remain responsible during interventions unless otherwise directed. The provincial treasury can designate alternative accounting officers during intervention, particularly for those municipalities with large budgets, and large budgets meaning over 500 million rand, but must be done in consultation with the national treasury. Interventions must be publicly declared within 14 days and communicated to national and provincial stakeholders. Must be reviewed every 3 months. Amendments, terminations, and escalation must be properly assessed and documented with consideration of the solution impacts. The minister, the National Council of Provinces, and other bodies must review and may influence interventions. Regular progress reports and information sharing are mandated. Municipalities must provide information for decision making. Interventions should include plans for capacity building to address underlying weaknesses, then a final report, as in the case of provincial interventions. National interventions must be submitted within 30 days. We have a dedicated chapter dealing with the administrator as well as the national provincial executive representatives. And I think drawing from experience, this chapter is informed by that. So a requirement from the minister to publish a list of qualified candidates, but excluding current government employees, eligible for appointment as administrators or either a national or provincial executive representative. Candidates must meet set qualifications and apply accordingly. These roles may be fulfilled by individuals or groups acting collectively under written direction from the national or provincial executive. The provincial executive appoints provincial executive representatives, and the municipal administration is accountable to that representative, while the provincial administration reports to the national executive representative. Appointments are limited to the duration of the intervention unless extended for transitional tasks, and those appointees that have been dismissed are removed from the official list. Appointees must receive written mandates and terms of reference from the relevant executive, which must define their authority and responsibilities under various intervention types. And you would know the various types that are listed under Section 139. Appointees must report back to the appointing executive on intervention outcomes and advise whether the municipality or province is capable of fulfilling its obligations independently thereafter. Just in terms of some of the miscellaneous matters dealt with in Chapter 7, firstly, the intervening national or provincial department covers the cost of appointing administrators or national reps or provincial reps, but may recover these costs from the relevant province or municipality, as the case may be. Individuals or officials who violate provisions related to interventions may face fines, imprisonment up to 10 years, or both. The Minister of Cooperative chairs the National Coordinating Committee, which is supported administratively by the department. And the provincial coordinating committees are co-chaired by the MEC for local government and the MEC for finance, with support from the relevant provincial departments. National executive members must enter into MOUs with their MEC counterparts, outlining responsibilities, coordination through intergovernmental fora, and any prescribed matter. And the minister may issue regulations consistent with the provisions in the Act and must consult the Minister of Finance for matters affecting the Public Finance Management Act or the NFMA. Honorable Chairperson and honorable members of the committee, it is recommended that you note the provisions in the bill, and that, of course, the department will be ready to support the technical level when the time comes to do so. Stop here, and back to you, Honorable Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Dr. Naidu. The presentation is really responding to many questions that honorable members have been asking even during our oversight visits in Free State. SALCA have been consistent in raising this question: when is this bill coming forward for consideration? So we are really welcoming the presentation. I'm now going to request members to ask clarities, questions. Of course, we'll still have another opportunity when we are processing the bill for you to make comments in order to effect those changes that or amendments or anything that you feel that is lacking on this proposed bill. Let me take hands, honourable members. Let me note hands. Honorable Nzimande, you are the first one, followed by Honorable Skirkocher, Honorable Ceza, Honorable Peter, Honorable Badenhorst. Those are the hands for now that I have. Yeah, let's move in that order. Let's start with you, Honorable Nzimande.
Thanks, Honorable Chair, and good morning. The first question relates to whether risks coming with interventions by provinces, the MEC and Treasury, have been identified. Because, for example, we will have a situation where you have a different leader of government in the province and a different at a level of a local or municipalities, which there might be power struggle and interventions be made not necessarily on the basis of service delivery, but based on political reasons. But the second question I have relates to on proper application of this bill, are there no overlap in the view of the department between the interventions as expected in Section 154 of the Constitution and what now is detailed to cover Section 100 and 139? The last question, Chair, is in relation to the issue of the action that can be taken by provinces, that provinces to cooperate. Why the wording it's not about instructive, so that it will be clear what is it that the national government can do, or sorry, minister. The final last one, the exclusion of water and sanitation minister in the structure of those that are put together, and that one that deals with the minister in presidency because of the issue of water, trust him and so forth. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you,
Thank you.
Honorable Zimande. The next member is Dr. Skir Kocher.
Thank you, Chairperson. I must actually ask Honorable Zimande, the MK camouflage that he's wearing is even working on the virtual platform. You can't always see him. That's somewhere else.
No, he's still protected. Yeah.
He's protected. Anyway, Chairperson, let me get into this. I welcome the presentation, and I actually want to just take lead of your comment that we will be eventually able to submit our final amendments or proposals. So I'm not really going to then give too much, because we will be able to do that, and then otherwise this exercise will be duplicated. I just want to find out, my first question is, in the bill, and been working through it and through the presentation, and I think it's a section of the Constitution that's not always being utilized to the full, is Section 125.3. So I just want to see how this bill, because it actually refers to Schedule 4 and 5 of the Constitution, which clearly mandates what is the responsibilities of the different spheres. I just want to see how this bill is going to strengthen that specific section, because we all know of 100, 139, 154, and all of these different sections, but this one coming in actually touches on specific issues that needs to be actually addressed on. And then my following question is, I just want to find out, I find it very difficult in this presentation, in the bill, to see the logical flow of the different clauses, because some of them are very long-winded and vague, and then and the bill presents very much a bureaucratic, how's the word, bureaucratization of a simple constitutional provision for support and intervention. So I feel like the bill a bit confuses what is intervention, what is the blurry lines between monitoring, support, and intervention. So I don't know if there could be clarity on that, or maybe when we submit our amendments to this bill. And then my last thing, Chairperson, is just I think it's clause 25, 26, 27, where you talk about the regulation of the intervention. It says that submit the copy of such notice to the National Council of Provinces with 14 days after the date contemplated in section 33E. But I don't see there's no such clause in the bill. So I just want to find out some clarity, and then the rest of the amendments and changes we will submit. And I want to know, when will that be, when we will be able to submit these amendments or contemplate them so that we can process them. And that is it from me. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Skill Kocher. The next mem. Okay, let me allow the department to respond to these two members' questions. Then we'll proceed after that.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson, and Honorable Nzimande and Honorable Skill Kocher for the questions. I am supported by a team. I'm going to ask Mr. Kasi to ready himself to respond to the issues raised by Honorable Nzimande, and maybe pick up one or two issues raised by Honorable Skill Kocher. But as he does that, Honorable Chair, I think it's important to note that one, we have briefed the portfolio committee in relation to the bill. So pretty much the presentation that we have made here, we have made to the portfolio committee on COPTA. Now, secondly, that being the case, and in terms of the processing of the bill through Parliament, the version that we have before us today could or could not change drastically in terms of the processing. So it could be that the portfolio committee could schedule engagements, stakeholder engagements, inviting comments on the bill, undertaking public consultations, and the magnitude of that could be small, it could be large. But in terms of all of those consultative processes that would be undertaken, it could result in that which we have here today, could be much different from the time that the committee, the portfolio committee, finalizes their process and then hands over the bill to the select committee for further processing. So I think it's important to note that in terms of the way the legislation would be processed through Parliament. That said, let me hand over to Mr. Kasi to respond to the issues that have been raised.
Indeed. Thank you very much, Dr. Naidu. Thank you very much, Honorable Chair and honorable members of Parliament. Yes, indeed. One or two on the responses. There was an inquiry as to if the bill's provision are used for the purposes that are not supposed to be. That is to say, if the provisions of the bill are used for nefarious or spurious reasons, it's definitely for the minister and the NCOP as the approvers or disapprovers of this intervention. You can disapprove the intervention based on those spurious reasons. That is to say, if the intervention doesn't satisfy the constitutional criteria, indeed, the minister or the NCOP will be inclined to disapprove that intervention. There is this the inquiry on the exclusion of the Minister for Water Affairs. Honorable Chair, you would recall that when Dr. Naidu presented, there was a structure that is created for overlooking or overseeing the intervention, which is National Coordinating Committee. Now, obviously, our minister is the Minister of Finance and the Minister of DPSA, who will be responsible for personnel issues. Our minister responsible for IGR and cooperative governance matters, and the Minister of Finance will be responsible for budgetary issues and all those kind of things. But then it does allow for inclusion of another minister who's having interest in the intervention. So should the Minister of Water Affairs be the one who's called upon to, deal with water issues, it's definitely will be the National Coordinating Council will definitely invite the Minister for Water Affairs. Well, yeah, there was the issue around bureaucratization of the constitutional provisions on the intervention. Remember, Chair, Honorable Chair, well, this bill is not a panacea for any and every challenge that the municipality will find itself in. But indeed, it's not a political bill. And that's what we always are saying, that political challenges cannot be, resolved by administrative, policy or regulatory framework such as the bill. So political connotations and all are left out in the bill, but indeed, the bill does deal with technical issues more. It's more of dealing with technical issues than political connotation and all. Well, I was not too sure, the last part, Dr. Naidu, I was not too sure of the reference to section 125 regarding the, I think it's in regard with the, cabinet structures, as to how cabinet structure it's like in relation to dealing with the intervention. With that, I hope I've touched on some of the issues that have been raised. Thank you very much, Honorable Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kasi. If you do come back and have to make a comment, I think you need to get closer to the microphone. In my case, it was your voice was very, very soft. So perhaps just to respond to the issue around section, is it 125.3 of the Constitution, and that which states that the province has executive authority in terms of section 2B, only to the extent that the province has the administrative capacity to assume executive responsibility. I'm not sure, Honorable Skill Hochhold, whether you're implying that it has not been provided for, or it has not taken into consideration that specific provision of the Constitution. And perhaps as I respond, and taking into account the other comment or input made about the bureaucratic formulation of the provisions, giving impetus to the simplified provisions in the Constitution, I think it must be noted that, what we're trying to solve here is informed by, and like I said, a very, very comprehensive process of consultation, a very, very in-depth analysis of the various interventions. And I think in the second or third slide, at least in the instance of municipal provincial interventions, there have been over 200 such interventions that we have looked at, the manner in which it unfolded, the experience deriving from all of that to inform the provisions that we have in the bill. So in the first instance, if it is felt that, there isn't alignment between that which is in the bill, together with section 125.3 in particular, from a drafting perspective, we could look at that and see how that alignment does take place, but also the alignment or the drafting that would need to be looked at in terms of simplifying provisions, if they are felt to be, cumbersome in its formulation or as it finds itself in the bill. I think, and perhaps just the last point around the exclusion of the Minister of Sanitation and Water, and I think rightfully indicated by Mr. Kasi, the National Coordinating Committee, and as provided in the presentation and in the provisions in the bill, any member that would have a line function responsibility in relation to the intervention could be part of that National Coordinating Committee. So it may not be expressly stated in the provisions in the bill, but if it impacts that line function minister, that minister would be part of the NCC. Honorable Chairperson, we hand back to you.
Thank you, Dr. Naidu and the team. The next member now is Honorable Teza.
Oh, thank you very much, Chair. Thank you, Doctor, for the presentation. Good morning, colleagues. I just wanted to check in terms of your stakeholder engagement and consultation, because it is worrisome from our side that any consultation cannot deal with the gaps that are pertaining to the visually impaired people in South Africa that must maximally participate in any bill to ensure that all South Africans are involved. There are 700 to 1 million people that are visually impaired, and therefore in terms of consultation of stakeholders, have you considered that particular mechanism of consultation to involve those with disabilities, Chair? The second being post-intervention impact assessment and the involvement of traditional leaders in effecting maximum participation in light of the needed equitable support mechanisms that provide, that prioritize the poor and rural municipalities. Can the doctor explicate as to how the bill seeks to achieve this? In terms of Chapter 1, Chairperson, as it lays the foundation for the bill through a definition of key concepts, our question, Chair, on as to why does the bill fail to include perhaps the definition that speaks to community participation, public audit committees, and ward committees, or service delivery failures rooted in corruption, despite these being the practical causes of most interventions, Chair. Chapter 2 speaks to targeted support. I need clarity, Chair, in terms of the criteria for deciding which municipalities or provinces receive targeted support. Is this data-driven or politically motivated? How does the bill ensure that targeted support is not selective? And then in terms of oversight, monitoring, what in departments normally, even when I'm in class, there's this interrogation as to why the departments have little monitoring teams. What capacitation of monitoring teams does the bill seeks to correct in the departments with regards to who exactly monitors the provinces and municipalities and how their independence from executive ensured in terms of monitoring, Chair? And then is there any evidence therein that previous inducing measures like directives, support, visits, actually work, will municipalities be allowed to contest or appeal these measures if they believe they are being used unfairly? In terms of the PCCs and the national coordinating committees, I'm worried because I always hear it. I think we had it during COVID, and we had it during the intervention into cultural initiations at the Department of Traditional Affairs. But how do you ensure the effectiveness and the report back on timeous basis, on quarterly basis, in terms of the effectiveness of the intervention in terms of this bill? Chair, I think that is my cutting short, and thank you very much for the time, Chair. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Honorable Peter.
Thank you, Chair, and the team as well. Good morning. Based on your presentation, that you know where the buck stops, I just want to find out what is the root cause of these bills to delay so long. My last question, what mechanism has your department in order to fast track the slow pace of this bill? I thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Peter. And Honorable Ceza will request the department to respond to your questions. Over to you, Dr. Naik.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson. I think while I request Mr. Kasi to prepare himself to respond to some of the issues raised by Honorable Ceza, let me respond to Honorable Peter. And I think the comment made is valid, in that the processing of this bill, or the development of this bill until it came into the parliamentary process, had taken a long time. And I suppose it had taken such a long time because of the sensitivities attached to providing for legislation that unpacks sections 100 and 139 of the Constitution. So the development of the bill gives impetus to those two provisions. Secondly, and I think it is common knowledge, that the issue of interventions, particularly constitutional interventions, can be quite a loaded matter. Quite loaded in the sense that there have been instances where interventions have taken place, but later on, it being subjected to various matters, including court processes, we have seen that such interventions have been found wanting, and in certain instances, reversed. Now, noting those things, those considerations, one had to be absolutely on the mark when it came to processing and finalizing this bill. If you look, for example, at the very early slides of the presentation,
recording stopped,
you would have noticed that at the instance that Cabinet had approved the submission of the bill into Parliament, it had taken close to a year before it was submitted to Parliament. And the reason for that is that each and every provision in the bill had to stand constitutional muster before the bill could be processed. And of course, there have been many engagements between the department and the Office of the Chief State Law Advisor in that time, trying to clarify some of the provisions. And I think one of the provisions that really consumed our time was the issue of arriving or settling a definition of executive obligation. So, in large, Honorable Peter, those would be some of the reasons as to what caused the delay in the processing of the bill towards Parliament. Your second question in relation to fast tracking the bill now. So, of course, Parliament, since the beginning of April of this year, has become the custodian of the bill. It is now in the hands of Parliament to take it through the various processes, starting with the Portfolio Committee, who have commenced with the work by virtue of us presenting this to them. So they would decide on their own programming in terms of how the bill would be processed. And I've indicated in my previous response what some of those things could include. It could include stakeholder engagements, could include calling specialists to present their position on the bill, but then it could undertake public consultation processes as well. And those public consultation processes could be per municipality, per district municipality. It could be at a provincial level. So it is totally up to Portfolio Committee in terms of how they would want to process it. And of course, with how they would want to process it could also impact or inform the time frames associated with them completing their process. And as you would know that after they would complete that process, it would be handed over to the NCOP. And then there too, it would depend on how the NCOP would want to process the bill. Remember, at the instance it is received, it is submitted to the provincial legislatures. And even at that instance, it depends on how the provincial legislature wants to process it. It could be that the provincial legislature of a province would want to undertake a local municipality or a district municipality approach, which could inform or influence the time frames to complete that specific provincial legislature process. And remember, only after all of the provinces have received or provided their negotiating mandates would the committee be able to process it and then thereafter refer it back to the Portfolio Committee. Perhaps to give you an indication of the time frames for the Municipal Demarcation Authority Bill introduced in Parliament in 2022, and we are still in the process of having provincial interactions and engagements on the bill. So mentioning that to give you an essence or a sense of how long the processing of the legislation could also be taken in Parliament. I'll pause there, invite my colleague to respond to some of the issues raised by Honorable Teza. Honorable Chair, I'll come back thereafter and then hand back to you. Mr. Kasi?
Dr. Naidu, thank you very much, and indeed, Honorable Chair. Thank you.
Your volume, sir, is too low. I don't know whether it's your gadget or you need to increase the volume in your gadget or you need to increase your voice.
Yes, hopingly I'm audible enough, Honorable Chair.
It's better now.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. Honorable Chair, I was saying indeed some of the questions are a bit hard to respond. For instance, the one that deals with visual impaired, in relation to sign languages, whether are we going to maybe put up a bill that visually impaired can be able to go through? Yes, I mean, government quite recently has taken a decision. In fact, it's now a government policy that the 12th language is official language. So indeed, normally what happens is that the departments has to choose other than English, one other language to can use and translate the bill into that other language. So I guess this is a discussion that we have to have in the department. Regarding the post-intervention, quickly just to indicate that the bill also does allow for aftercare of the intervention. And what normally happens is that when there is a revocation of an intervention, more often than not, basically, it's not like there will just be revocation and leave everything behind. But normally, there at times there would be issuing of directives to deal with matters that are still outstanding, and at times, sometimes the administrator or the national or provincial executive representative would be given like extension to can monitor whether all the reasons that brought about the intervention has been mitigated against. But indeed, around the involvement of traditional leaders into interventions and all, I think this can be linked to the Structures or Systems Act that provides a role for traditional leaders to be involved in municipal council and so on. On community participation issues, I think indeed this is an important matter that in our problem statement also we did basically like detect this as a challenge. Now, when there is an intervention, basically what normally would happen is that the province or the national government is supposed to publicize the intervention itself. And indeed, in a way, publication of this would involve community participation. The last one, basically, Chair, it's on targeted support. Indeed, targeted support is additional support that is provided in terms of Section 125 of the Constitution towards the provincial government and 154 of the Constitution towards the local government sphere. Now, what we mean about this targeted support is that a municipality, for instance, will identify the gap in terms of what they don't have. They would then submit if that power can be derived from maybe a national department like water and sanitation department. Then the municipality will write to the MEC motivating for support that the municipality is requiring. The MEC then will look at that submission and indeed, with variance or not, will then allow the submission for a request for support from Water Affairs. And indeed, that has to have certain time frames. If, for instance, the Minister of Water Affairs doesn't respond within 3 months of the submission for request for support, that will be escalated at worst case scenario to the President, all depending on which sphere is intervening. Chair, I think you did deal with the issues of frustrating of this bill, but indeed the effectiveness of interventions, indeed there will be undertaken. There are provisions around monitoring the implementation of the interventions themselves. And indeed, the was that quarterly reports and close-up reports will give us a sense of how effective were the intervention in that instance. With that, thank you very much, Honorable Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kasi. Perhaps to just amplify two issues that have been raised by Honorable Klesa. The one on the first point that was made around vulnerable groups. So on the one hand, I think we now provide that vulnerable groups with the reviews would be considered in the instances of interventions through the various provisions that we have in the bill. But whether vulnerable groups were a targeted category when it came to the development of the bill, I think we were restricted to that which is required in terms of law to ensure that, appropriate consultation does take place. And I guess that, the provisions that have finally found itself in the bill have been subjected to the various checks and balances that are provided for or in terms of the requirements when processing of legislation does take place. But I think it is a very, very important point that Honorable Klesa has made in relation to ensuring that all categories and groups of people are catered for. On the issue of monitoring teams and how do we keep track of these interventions, etc. I strongly believe that the intervention or the proposals that we have made in the bill in relation to the early warning system, so at the municipal level and at the national and provincial level, but also now giving life to Section 17 of the Public Administration Management Act, where that act provides explicitly for the establishment of the Office of Standards and Compliance. And when you look at the provisions in that act, in relation to what the functions of the office are, it is very, very detailed in terms of the requirement in that it has to evaluate the appropriateness of norms and standards. It has to promote and monitor compliance with minimum norms and standards. It needs to advise the Minister of Public Service and Administration on those norms and standards, etc., etc. So on the one level, that is a requirement of the Department of Public Service and Administration to establish that office. And of course, as they establish that office, the evidence that we have gathered over time in terms of how interventions have happened, how they should have happened, or what you should be considering to ensure an intervention happens, or what to stay away from to ensure that, interventions are done appropriately. But the other lever that we have in terms of the bill is that the minister can make regulations on any matter that is provided for in the Act. And I believe that through that lever, that which is not catered for in detail, when it comes, whether it comes to monitoring and evaluation, whether it comes to consultation, etc., through that lever, and as long as there are departing provisions in the legislation, the minister would be able to provide that kind of a detail in the regulations. Honorable Chairperson, I will stop there and back to you. And I do hope that we have responded to the issues raised by the honorable members. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Doc. And let's move. The next member was Honorable Badenhorst. I see you have removed your hand. Are still on?
Yeah, thank you very much. I know that we're under time pressure for this meeting, so I'm going to reserve my speaking time for when we start addressing the individual issues at the next meeting regarding this bill. I was basically covered by Honourable Skeerbuffel. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Honourable Perenost. There are no further hands. I would like to thank you, Dr. Knight and the team for having presented this process. We know that there are other processes that the portfolio still need to finalize before it is handed over to us. We'll await that process. Immediately we receive the bill, we'll then initiate our processes of public hearings as it is Section 76 bill to ascertain that provinces get involved in processing the bill and sourcing the inputs. Then immediately after that, we'll then come back and also have a session with different stakeholders where they'll be making their inputs and we deliberate on the bill. And then we finalize the processes. So we are going to follow all the nitty-gritties that are supposed to be followed in processing the bill. Thank you very much. We wish you everything of the best. You can take leave now. We'll just deal with our minutes. And thank you for your presence in the meeting.
Thank you very much for the opportunity, Honourable Chair and Honourable members of the committee. We thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, Doctor.
Honourable Ceza, as a veteran of this committee, knows all the officials from Cooperative. Will just change his uniform and wear black, green, and gold, then he will be fine after that.
In the next lifetime. In the next lifetime.
Let's get 2 minutes. Let's get 2 minutes. The first set of minutes, we must apologize, honourable members, that our team have been having this technical challenge where they had no gadgets to process the work of this committee. And I even tried to give them my laptop. When they took it to IT for other things, then they were told that the policy does not allow them to use my laptop as the MP, because if anything happens whatsoever. So we're still waiting for the office within the NCOP to resolve those matters. So let's start with the first set of the 10th of June. You can see that we have around 7. Let's move. Members have received these minutes. I'm sure it was a big job for you as you were preparing for the debate to look for the minutes as well. Let's move up. Yes. Was at the end. Who's controlling the minutes?
It's Lwazi, Chairperson.
It's me,
Yeah,
Lwazi,
so,
Chair.
all right. So let's deal with the first one of the 10. Members, are there any corrections? From your names here and your organization you belong to. In one committee, I saw our honorable member giving another political party.
Let's correct you. Asumkhondo, so umkhondo party.
Yeah, not Mkondo, not Mkondo municipality. Mkondo, Umkondo.
Yeah,
yeah, but you okay, but anyway, you stole our name, but we'll resolve that in a court of law. All right, members, can we get a mover? Honorable Nzimande, you after the correction. Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Dr. Skip, go ahead.
I can rely on the support for the
Please hold on. Yes, Chairperson, I move for the adoption.
Your support, thank you. The minutes are adopted. Let's move to the second set. Loisy. This set is for the 17th of June. Let's start by the names of honorable members and correct Mkondo to Umkondo. Umkondo wesizwe party. Do you put you, Honorable Nzimande? Yes, so you Umkondo. Yeah, ukuthi asikalazi kahle leli qembu liselisha so xolisa nje ukuthi sibhale wrong la. Alikawuqedi 2 years manje asikakwazi ukubamba kahle.
Okay.
All right. Yes. Yes,
Aske silungise no Gautengu lo. Gautengu. I think that he wanted to put that you on the Umkondo. But he left it.
The Gauteng one, yeah. The Gauteng one is wrong. Gauteng, that you belongs to Umkondo. Okay. Now we'll look for all these small things after this as well. Let's move up. Mr. Ben, let's move. That was the end. Let's move to the first page. These are the minutes for the 17th of June. Members, can you get a mover in the second if there are no corrections?
And the seventh of move, I'm trying to move.
Honorable Nzimande moved. Honorable Bedenhorst, seconds. Let's move to the next set. Third set. These ones are for the 24th of June. Let's move up. so that you can see our names there and political parties, whether they are written correctly. Yes, let's move. Okay, that's the end part. Can we get a mover if there are no corrections and the seconder respectively? Honorable Peter.
I move, Chair.
Thank you. Any seconder? Honorable Skill Cocker. Thank you very much. The minutes are adopted. The next set. I nearly said Honorable Ben.
Chairperson.
Yes.
Chair, that was the last batch, Chair.
Yes. Chairperson.
Oh.
I accept the nomination of Honorable Ben.
Yeah, I promoted you. You're Honorable Ben now. Yes, Honorable Moss.
Chairperson, honorable members. Chairperson, all members, with due respect, noting the constraints that the chairperson indicated, I owe this committee, I've indicated in the email that the performance in respect of the completion of the minutes has been slow due to lack of that tools of trade. In summary, Chair, I owe this committee the minutes that were dealing with Department of Human Settlement and Public Service and Administration. The commitment is before the end of business tomorrow, all that will be completed, Chair. I will try to negotiate with my daughter to make sure that I perform my parliamentary responsibilities. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you, Mr. Manele. Thank you very much, colleagues, for your support. Honorable members, thank you for your time. I know that we have time constraints, but thank you. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.